What's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of Get It Bucket Podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron, as always, joined by my guy, Kev. Kev, what's going on, brother?
I'm great, man. I'm sending love to my SoCal family. You already know it's a lot going on out here, but I'm good, though. My family's good for the most part. So, again, sending love to all the people out there, going through it in Pacific Palisades, Pasadena, Altadena, and everywhere else, Brentwood. It's been a crazy last week, but I'm good, man. It's been a lot of good college basketball games. We had a lot of great games this past Saturday, and we're going to get into some good things today, bro. But I can't complain. How you doing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, praise out to everybody going through it, out in the left coast, man. Cali, it's a lot of craziness going on with the wildfires. So prayers up for everyone who's been affected by that, and prayers up for everyone in your family who's been affected by this, Kev. But yeah, college basketball was in full go this weekend. We got a lot of good action this weekend. We got some changes in the new AP poll. And as you see scrolling down, that's the top 10 of the AP poll. Auburn is undisputed number 1. I think they got all the votes. Iowa State coming in at 2. No, Duke got 1 vote. Duke, number 3 team in the country, followed by Bama. Florida, who's looked really good. Tennessee dropped from 1 all the way to 6. Marquette at 7. Kentucky at 8. Kansas at 9. And the Houston Cougars follow the top 10. The rest of the top 10. The rest of the top 25 goes with Texas A&M at 11, your Michigan State Spartans at 12, Oregon 13, UConn at 14, Mississippi State at 15, Gonzaga 16, Purdue, the Boilermakers at 17, Memphis at 18, the Fighting Illini at 19, the Michigan Wolverines at 20, the Rebels of Ole Miss at 21, Utah State 22, Georgia Bulldogs at 23, the Wisconsin Badgers at 24, and rounding out the top 25 is the Baylor Bears, who've played some good basketball of late. But that's the top 25. Anything that you would change in that top, especially in that top 10? Do you think is a team too high, team too low, or just overall with the whole rank? Do you think it's a team that should be ranked higher, or unranked team that should be there? What are you thinking about this new AP poll?
Man, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna start off with a little bit of bad news first, for depending on who you're listening to or who you like. But I'm gonna be honest, as great as they've played so far this season, I really don't think Kentucky's a top 10 team. And the only reason I say that is because
don't tell the Kentucky fans, bro. I had an argument with a Kentucky fan because I said Duke's the number 1 ball. It's like, oh, Duke hasn't beat anyone. You guys lost. I was like, yo, yeah, chill, bro.
Yeah. And again, the only reason I say that is because they played in an instant classic of a game last week versus Florida, right?
Yeah.
On their home floor, they won the game, scoring 106 points. But Florida scored 100 points on their home floor at Rupp Arena. You just can't give up that amount of points. And then they went down to Starkville, or they lost to Georgia. They lost at Georgia. I almost forgot about that. They lost in Athens against Georgia, who I actually like. I like the Bulldogs: Mike White, Silas Demery, Asa Noel, Santos Surreal, Tyron Lawrence. They got a lot of good talent down there. I think that's a sneaky good SEC team, and they're going to be a team that hopefully is in the NCAA tournament this year. But they lost that game. Then they went down to Starkville on Saturday, and they won a very good game, by the way. If you didn't watch that game, please go back and rewatch it. But they won 95-90. And I just think eventually Kentucky's going to have to get stops. And I don't necessarily think the defense is bad. I think it lacks physicality, but I just don't think they put it all together as a team. But they do have good individual defenders, whether it's Lamont Butler or Otega Oweh or Jackson Robinson. But you need a complete team defense. I think Mark Pope and his coaching staff are still trying to establish that. But again, it's not saying that Kentucky's bad or anything like that. I just think right now they're kind of struggling to guard the ball. And luckily, their offense is so potent that it doesn't matter. But I think as you get further and further into SEC play, eventually you're going to have to get stops. And if you want to win big-time college basketball games, you got to get stops. We know that, right? But
I think they have the worst – I'm looking now. I think they have the worst defensive rating out of all the teams in the top 25, if I'm wrong. I think that's just from what I'm looking at. Everyone in the top 25, they have the worst defensive rating. I think they're 87th in the country in defensive rating. So, yeah, the defense is not good.
Yeah, so they just got to get that right. Again, it's not saying they're not a top 10 team isn't a knock. I know some Kentucky fans will say that, but again, it's just about you got to put it together. If you want to win a national championship, you want to get out this first weekend in the NCAA tournament, you got to get stops. So I think that's one thing. And I'm going to say this too. Iowa State has a real case to be the number one team in the country. And I think people are kind of overlooking them. I think they're waking up now because they played in a hell of a game on Saturday too, where they went down to Lubbock and beat Texas Tech in overtime.
Curtis Jones, he's holding.
Curtis Jones, Keyshawn Gilbert, Taman Lipsey, Josh Jefferson, Milan Momcilovic, Deshaun Jackson. They have pieces everywhere. And I think the thing I like about this team more than last year is bringing over Josh Jefferson from St. Mary's, who honestly I didn't even really know about. He adds a completely different dynamic on that wing and post that they didn't have last year. Like you can give it to him in the post. He can knock down threes from the corners and the wings. Like he does a lot of really good things. He hit the layup, to send the game to overtime and eventually where they ultimately ended up winning the game. So I just think offensively they have a lot more pieces than they did last year. And you have a real post threat with Josh Jefferson, with Deshaun Jackson, and even sometimes you can put Milan down there too. And that's the scary thing. I really don't even think Milan has been as good as I probably projected him to be this year. I thought he was going to be an All-American, but I do think Keyshawn Gilbert should be higher up in the National Player of the Year conversation than he is. I want to say today, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was like 6. And I'm going to be honest, like people forget at the Maui Invitational, they were up 18 points against Auburn before they lost by 2. They're up 18 at half with a fully healthy Auburn team, and Janai Broome hit the tip in to win the game. But Keyshawn Gilbert was killing that game. Then they went back home. They beat Marquette at the crib. I love Cam Jones. He's definitely a National Player of the Year, contestant. But Keyshawn Gilbert outplayed him too in that game. So I'm sitting here listening to all these narratives and things like that. But Keyshawn Gilbert has been just as good as anybody in the country. I'm just being honest with you guys. So Iowa State is a deadly, deadly team. And
can I with Iowa State, do you still think their lack of love is simply because of the brand? Because I kind of feel like that's the case where because it's still Iowa State, like when you talk to people about them, they can't really even tell you who's on the team because it's like, it's Iowa State, So I still think some of their narrative is just strictly because it's Iowa State.
Yeah, but I mean, my thing is, if we're talking right now, to me, they're probably clearly the best team in the Big 12. Like, I don't think anybody is competing with them. I think Kansas can put it together, and I'm still not sleeping on them Houston Cougars like a lot of people are right now. But I think Iowa State is like 2, maybe even 3 games ahead of everybody in the Big 12. And I could be wrong about that, but we've seen what they did last year with lesser talent, with lesser offensive firepower. This year, it's a complete team. And I think that's a testament to TJ Otzelberger and his staff identifying the pieces that they lacked last year, adding that. And now you look at them, they've already stacked a whole bunch of quality wins, and they're going to lose eventually. Like, they haven't lost in conference play yet, but they're going to lose eventually. That's just the nature of the beast. But nothing's going to waver me from being like, oh, this team can't win a national championship. This team has it. Their defense is disruptive. They got one of the best 6-men in the country in Curtis Jones. Keyshawn Gilbert can go get a bucket and finish through traffic against anybody at any time whenever he wants to. Taman Lipsey's a solid guard. Again, Milan hasn't even played that crazy, but he can still score from anywhere. And you just have guys everywhere. So I love this Iowa State team. I think TJ Otzelberger has done a great job. And I want to say he's been there for about 4 years now. And he's taken that, program and he's elevated it to just new heights and put them on a national map that they should have always been on, because historically they've been a really good program. But TJ Otzelberger is doing a legit job out there. But, I mean, continuing on, Tennessee dropping, I mean, my only thing with Tennessee is like, before they went to Illinois and beat Illinois, which was a great win. Jordan Gainey had the game-winning layup, right, to get him out of there. Zakai Ziegler was in foul trouble. They had a couple other guys in foul trouble. But before that win, which is their best win of the season so far, in my opinion, their best wins were against Baylor and Louisville, at Louisville. And I'm going to be honest, like, yes, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, Baylor's been playing better. But at that time, Baylor did not look good whatsoever. And that's not to knock Tennessee, because we all thought Baylor was going to be really good going into the season. And they still can be really good. That win will probably age better than what I'm giving it credit for right now. But with all due respect to Pat Kelsey and Louisville, because they are winning games in the ACC right now, but Louisville is not like a national championship contending team. So when everybody was talking about, oh, Tennessee is the best team in the country, I didn't really see it. Because, again, Chaz Lanier is good, and he can score. And you have a whole bunch of guys that fit the identity of what Rick Barnes wants to do defensively with, Zakai Ziegler, with Jemai Meshack, with Igor Milicic, with, all these other guys that they got, right? But me personally, I think Alabama and a fully healthy Auburn team are better than Tennessee. That's just me. And I would make the case that another team that deserves a little bit of respect, and they're right there, as you mentioned, at 11, Texas A&M is in that top tier of the SEC too. And I'm going to continue to beat that drum too, because the last few years when we've watched them, it's pretty much just been the Wade Taylor the fourth show. But this year, I think Bud did a great job of putting other offensive pieces around him with Jurek Phelps, who's been killing this year from SMU, with, CJ Wilcher from Nebraska, who's a knockdown shooter, with Pharrell Payne coming over from the Minnesota to hold down the paint. Like, this A&M team is balanced, and I think they have a lot of guys. Manny Obaseki, right? They have players. So A&M is going to be right there firmly in the mix. They took Alabama down to the wire on Saturday night without Wade Taylor, and that just showed me that, this team is legit. This team is real, and they're going to be right in the thick of things as the SEC continues to play out. But those are just a few of my takes from this AP Top 25 poll.
So obviously the SEC is very prominent in this poll. So what is who are your top teams in the SEC right now? Because there's teams that are unranked in the SEC that if they were in any other conference, they're probably a top 15 team right now. I think the basketball SEC is what people think the football side of the SEC is. Like, this is what it really is. And it's impressive because there's a lot of good teams in the SEC that are in this top 25. So what would be your top 5 in the SEC right now?
So I definitely go Auburn. I go Alabama. I go A&M, as I just mentioned. And I didn't even mention Florida. That's the crazy part. Florida just blasted Tennessee last week. That's why Tennessee. Yeah, that's why they fell in the rankings, because Florida blasted them. So I'm gonna go again. Auburn, Alabama, A&M, Florida, Tennessee. I think that's my top 5. And again, I don't want to be too critical of Tennessee, because Tennessee can still be very, very good. The thing is, though, every single year it feels like Rick Barnes' team is offensively incapable of just doing things, right? Last year you had Dalton Connect. He was the savior, right? He was the great white hope. He's doing amazing things right now for the Lakers. He was killing. But again, if you can slow down Chaz Lanier, and obviously it's much, much more easier said than done, then you got a good fighting chance of beating Tennessee. That's just what it is. And so I would take those 4 teams ahead of them. Again, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and A&M, because all those teams can guard, all them teams can shoot, and they got multiple guys on the floor at all times that can break you down off the dribble and can make other guys better. So it's not a knock on them. I just think the SEC is just that good. And Tennessee had a great non-conference slate, went undefeated, won a couple games in the SEC, but they ran into Florida down there in Gainesville, and, Walter Clayton barely even scored like that. That's the crazy part. And they won by like 30. Walter Clayton's another guy that's in the National Player of the Year race, and he had like an okay game. And they had other guys just killing. Will Richard and Ruben Chenyelu has been one of the best transfer portal pickups in the country, in my opinion, from Washington State. He holds down the paint. He's blocking shots. He's rebounding. He's running the floor hard. He's dunking everything. Alex Condon, they just got a lot of dudes. Aberdeen can come off the bench and just make plays. So that Florida team is nasty down there, in Gainesville. I'm kind of concerned about their lack of depth, but right now, they're putting up a lot of points and they're defending at a high level, and that's a good recipe for success.
So you mentioned Auburn. Obviously, they lost Johnny Brewer, who's going to be out for a little bit with with an ankle sprain. How much do you think that affects this Auburn team going forward? Obviously, he's not going to be out for the season, but he's going to be out for at least, I would say, till maybe March. You would probably say around that time. So how do you think this affects Auburn going forward?
It's going to be tough just because, again, he's probably the favorite to win the Naismith Wooden Player of the Year award. But
definitely was, yeah.
My thing is, though, Auburn, I think Bruce Purr has instilled such a great culture. I know we love to throw that word around, but, let's be honest, Auburn has never been a basketball school until Bruce Pearl got there. And you look at this team, they have a lot of different guys that can beat you. Janai Broome is the engine because he's been an elite post player ever since he was at Morehead State. But this year, I think he's really stepped out his range, hitting from the 3, being able to pass over the top of defenses. But you have other guys though. Like Chad Baker Mazara can take over games. Tahad Pettiford, I know you watched the game when y'all played them. He can go, right? He was a major factor in the game against South Carolina when they went out there in Columbia. And you got Miles Kelly, and you got, Denver Jones and all these guys, and you have Dylan Cardwell. And yes, when you lose one of the best players in the country, you're gonna take a brief step back. But if anybody can survive not having their best player for a few weeks, I think Auburn can, and they're going to have and playing some tough games in the SEC. They're going to get tested. They're going to get punched in the gut, but they got pieces and they got players and they got guys that are experienced. As I mentioned, they have a 9-man rotation or 8-man rotation, excuse me. 7 of them are seniors. 7 of them. The only non-senior is Tahad Pettiford. So like we're talking about experienced guys that have been here and done that. And they're going to continue to roll. I think they might take a loss here or there, but I don't think they're going to significantly fall off. I just think they have too much firepower. I think that defense is too chaotic. They rebound the hell of the ball as a team. They get out in transition. They get to whatever shots they want to, and they just have fun. And I think that's a good blend of chemistry and a nice formula to win games. So, again, it's going to be tough because you cannot replace the production of one of the best players in the country, but Auburn just has dogs, man. That's just what it comes down to. Auburn got too many dogs to really take a step back.
Yeah, so a little bit, they got tested at South Carolina, came away with that. But we know in the SEC, I mean,
it happens.
South Carolina, if they were in any other conference, they might be a tournament team. They're just, like I said before, like the SEC in basketball is what everyone thinks the SEC in football is. It truly is. And I think Bruce Pearl, he had said, like, man, every game we play in the SEC is an absolute dogfight. Like, it's just going to be, it's war. And it's true. There's not really a matchup in the SEC right now where you're like, all right, we got this. It's like, nah, you could lose to South Carolina. You could lose to Georgia, Vandy. Like, that it is truly a test in the SEC, but obviously it's gonna be tough without Johnny Broome. Like I said, he probably was the front runner at one point, for Player of the Year. But let's talk about someone who might be the new front runner of the Player of the Year, and that's my boy Cooper Flagg, who dropped 42, a ACC freshman record. He's figuring it out, Kev. People were saying, he's not hyped up. He's not this. He's not that, blah, blah, blah. And it seems like he's figuring it out, man. And we always, the defense was always there. We always knew he can get to the cup. He can the midi, but it seems like the outside shot is getting more comfortable. He's getting more comfortable shooting that outside ball. And, he was tremendous. He was tremendous, so what's your thoughts so far on Coop, and do you think that he's the front runner right now for National Player of the Year?
It's hard to say no, just because 40 is 40, dog. And
we talked about that before. Listen, 20 points in college is hard to get. 30 is like, whoa.
Yeah.
40?
It's crazy.
Man.
And I don't care who it's against, by the way. I don't care if it was an NAIA school, with all due respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, 40 is 40. Y'all got to realize, right? I always break it down. The NBA is more catered towards scoring, right? College isn't, because there's no defensive three in the key, meaning that opposing team centers and bigs can just chill in the paint all game. You know what I'm saying? It's a cheat code, right? So if you don't have a good college defense or a solid college defense, I kind of question your coaching, if I'm being honest, because you get a lot of assistance in that regard. But for him to score 42 against Notre Dame like this is one of my favorite processes about watching freshmen. Freshmen, they all go through this transformation throughout the course of a season in college basketball, where they might start off good, then they hit the freshman wall, then they start peaking, right? But for Cooper Flagg's case is that you guys put the ball in his hands from day one, asked him to make a lot of plays, asked him to go get you one in clutch situations. And we all remember the Kentucky game. He had the turnover, and a lot of people were trying to ridicule him. But it's like, bro, this is one of his first games. You know what I'm saying? And he's 17 at that.
17.
Exactly. And I think the thing about those moments is, one, luckily it didn't happen in March, but two, he can learn from it, right? He knows what moves that he can get to in those type of situations. And again, this was against Notre Dame, so it wasn't a close game, but I'm just saying that freshmen get better, ladies and gentlemen, not just when they turn to sophomores, but as the season progresses, especially high-level freshmen like Cooper Flagg. And so, again, for him to score 40 and the way that he did it, he was doing it in a variety of different ways, right? I think he's most comfortable getting to his midi pull-up. I think he loves it. He just looks like he's in rhythm. He always has good balance. He's always square towards the rim. He's going to dunk on you. He's good for a highlight play every single game. And as you mentioned, the three ball's coming around. That was really one of the main concerns was his three ball. And his form isn't bad. It looks a little clunky, but it works. And it works for him, and that's all that matters. If it goes in, it goes in. I don't really care about the form like that, especially when he's, 6'8", 6'9", and he's super springy. He gets a lot of lift on his jumper too, so I'm happy for Cooper Flagg. And this is just another amazing feat. And again, me personally, I just feel like Keyshawn Gilbert is my personal National Player of the Year right now. But again, when a dude drops 40, he's definitely in the mix. And again, on top of what we just talked about with Janai Broome potentially missing some games, I mean, Cooper Flagg is right there in the mix, just as great of a chance as anybody else. So, I mean, shout out to him, man, because, again, 40 is loud. I think that was, the Duke freshman record, if I'm not mistaken. That's crazy.
ACC freshman record.
That's insane.
And just think about all the guys that, especially in the one and done era, and then like Duke's one and dones, like, the Jason Tatums, the Brandon Ingrams, the Zion, RJ Barrett. Those guys, and Jabari Parker, and he has the record. Like he's definitely been impressive. He has his 3-point percentage up to 34%. It was like in like 30%, 29% for a lot of the year, but the last few games this since like December, the 3-point shot has been a very improved. And who's also look good for Duke, who's had a slow start too. Come on, Malawach. Malawach has definitely improved, not just with his defense, which we all know he could do, but the offense. He's been scoring a lot more, so he's been comfortable. So that's why I'm like, Duke is, and then they inserted Sion James into the starting line, and he's just a
man child.
You need that when you're predicated on getting top freshmen, you still need transfer portal. That's an underrated transfer portal move. Like I remember when they got him, I was like, he's gonna be what we need, and they inserted him, into that starter lineup, and he's just been a pit bull, and I said they did their thing. I said, I know it's Notre Dame. Notre Dame's had an up and down season, but they got some players. They still got some good players on their team, and
Marcus Burton is like that.
Yeah, so like they, Coop did it. He's doing it, and he's getting better, and that's scary. It's scary that he's getting better and better, And like you said, freshman, it's not just a freshman to sophomore thing. You can get better progressively during the season too, and he's on that way. So, but overall, Duke, man, I think they're playing good ball right now. They found their balance. We lost Malik Brown. He's gonna be out for a little bit. He's been having a knee issue, so he's gonna be out for a little bit. So that's tough because there's stretches with him and Sion. You put him and Sion and Flagg, it's hard, and that's why our defense has been so good. And then Malawach too. It's hard to defend when you got all those guys on the floor. So but with Coop, he's playing good, and then big. Duke right now, they're feeling it. They're feeling it right now. The Notre Dame game, it felt like both ends of the half, they were kind of slacking because at one point in first half they're up big, and then they let their guard down into the first half. Same thing. Notre Dame almost came back, and made it a game, but that happens, but they're playing good ball. I can't complain. But what about Sparty, man? Because it's crazy because usually, if I were to tell you Sparty's a top, what were they in the AP poll? 12?
12, yeah.
12. You would be hearing that. It would be loud, right? It'd be loud. But this is different. And I'm sure you're not used to that, but I think that could be a blessing because you guys are going to be under the radar.
Yeah.
So how are we feeling about, Sparty right now flying under the radar and playing, you guys are playing good ball.
Yeah, we've won our last 9 games, if I'm not mistaken. But I love it. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to say I expected this, but when you actually sit back and watch us, we're getting back to our roots, and that is defending, rebounding, and running. And you're seeing we also have a dude that's slowly but surely developing into an elite point guard in Jeremy Fears Jr.
Yeah, he's
And
good.
you add on to the fact that our sophomore class, which was highly regarded last year with Cohen Carr and Xavier Booker, is finally starting to put it together. And Cohen Carr is honestly the real testament, true testament of development. Because that dude, it was at a point a couple games ago, he had hit 21 straight free throws, bro. 21 straight free throws. And we all know that's a major, weak point of his game is not being able to really shoot the ball like that. But if he's hitting 21 free throws in a row for the way that he plays, as freakish as an athlete as he is, that's scary, right? And then you're just getting production from everywhere. Like Zamon Sapala has been a revelation. And then on top of Jackson Kohler as a junior starting to really figure it out and put it together. He's playmaking. He's finishing at the cup. He's hitting mid-range shots. He's doing a little bit of everything. He's defending fours like Devin Royal at Ohio State and Great Ossobor at Washington, and he's doing more than holding his own. We just played against Northwestern. Their best guys are Nick Martinelli and Brooks Barnheiser. Jackson Cole did a good job on both those guys in the instances that he had to guard those guys. And I just think we just have depth, right? We got bodies. On top of, you got two guys between Jaden Akins and Jace Richardson that are hooping. And Jace, I mean, you're seeing he's been on some mock draft boards and as a first-round lottery pick. And, I mean, the way that he's playing, I can't really say that he's not, right? Because, like, he comes off the bench and he's an automatic bucket. We just run plays for him and he just makes it work. He finishes through contact. He's great at just catch and shoot situations. He can break you down off the dribble. He can play the point guard or the off guard spot. Like, we just have a lot of guys that do a whole bunch of different things. Trey Holloman is super solid. And again, we're just getting back to our roots. I think that's the most important thing. We're one of the best transition offenses in the country. We're one of the best defenses in the country. And we match up well. We slow down a lot of the top guards, whether it was Bruce Thornton for Ohio State who gave Kentucky 30. We stopped him. We shut him down in Columbus, right? And so, again, I'm not going to get too high on my horse because we haven't played anybody that great. Like, our best win right now is probably Carolina, and we know Carolina is not the real Carolina as what we've known them as to be. But at the end of the day, we're handling business. And I think that's the most important thing because you've seen teams lose to inferior teams, right? I know Illinois didn't have Kasparis this past Saturday, but they lost to USC. USC is one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. They have talent. Y'all know how I feel about Muss, but Illinois should not be losing to USC even if they don't have their best player. I'm just being honest, right?
Oh, you're right.
And you look at other teams like, again, UCLA's falling off a cliff. Maryland just lost, a few different games, but we're handling business. Again, you went on the road, you beat Ohio State, you beat Washington, was bad, but you went on the road, you beat Northwestern. Now you got to keep it rolling, right? We're at home on Wednesday versus a gritty Penn State team that took Oregon down to the wire yesterday. So you got to figure it out. And then the real test is Sunday at the crib versus Illinois. Hopefully Kasparis plays. That could potentially be one of the best games in the Big Ten all year. But I love my team, and I love what we are. And it was a lot of people that said Tom Izzo was washed and Tom Izzo lost his step and Tom Izzo's not the dude anymore and he's not the best coach in the Big Ten. But Tom Izzo can still coach. And I think he's got his roster, and we're doing a lot of fun things with it. And I'm going to just say watch out for us because this team is built for March. I'll end it with that.
Built for March. So for you, do you feel like this team, like you just said, they're built for March, but do you think they can actually truly make a run?
Yes. I don't think, and I'm going to sound crazy, I don't think we can win a national championship. I think it's a little premature, as much as I hate to say that because I would love to see Jaden Akins win a national championship, but I think we're trending to be an Elite Eight team, Final Four capable team. I have no doubt about that in my mind because the craziest part about it, I didn't even mention, but if you look at our metrics from shooting the three, terrible. Like, I think we're like, as a team, we're shooting like 29% or something like that.
Yeah, it's still not a good 3-point shooter team. Yeah.
But my caveat to that is that, one, as I just mentioned, we're winning games. And two, more importantly, we're hitting timely threes. And that is fine with me because especially if we're living in the paint, like Jeremy Fears gets to the rim at will. Jaden Akins gets to the rim at will. Jace can get to the rim whenever he wants to. You have post presences between Zamon Zapala and Jackson Kohler. Cohen Carr, we know he's going to get to the rim because nobody can stop him from getting to the rim.
Yeah.
So it's like, I love it because while everybody else is playing outside in, we're playing inside out. And I think that's a better way to play the game depending on who your roster is, like if you're at Alabama with Nate Oates, they love to play outside in, that's fine. But for our roster, for our identity, I think because we dominate the paint, it's going to make 3-point opportunities come much easier. And I think that's the best thing about it. So, yeah, man, I think we can get to an Elite Eight this year or Final Four this year. I would not be surprised whatsoever.
Who's been the most improved player on that team? So you said, because last year you guys had a very hyped freshman class, and maybe people just put a little bit too much, too much, what's that word I'm looking for? Too much
hype,
yeah, essentially too much hype on the freshman class, and that we tend to do that with freshman classes because it's that's just what we do nowadays. But who do you think's been the most improved player out of that crop, out of the sophomores now?
I was gonna say Jeremy, but obviously Jeremy had the incident last year where unfortunately he got shot. We all know the story and missed the rest of the season. He only played like 12 games, I think. But I got to go with Colin Carr, man, because again, his energy is contagious, right? He's just like the X Factor dude. He's kind of similar to what Sion James and Malik Brown do for you guys, right? Like it's very similar, very similar. He goes out and guards other teams' best players. You can play him at the 4, you can play him at the 3. He gets out in transition. He's good for a highlight every single game. He's bound to put somebody on a poster. He makes the right cuts at the right time, and he's just doing everything, bro. Like it's just when you put him in the game, he gives us a new energy. I think it's important to always have that dude that can come off the bench and just be a spark plug. And Colin Carr is doing that to a T, and I love it because I didn't really expect it, and I should have known better because one thing Michigan State does is they develop talent just as good as anybody in the country. But for Colin to take the leap like he has this year, it's been honestly special to watch. And I think the craziest thing about it, I want to say nobody is playing over 26 minutes per game. That's how much depth we have. That's how loaded our roster is right now. Nobody's playing more than 26 minutes. And so, again, I wanted to say Jeremy, but I got to give credit to Colin because I feel like, yes, the point guard is like the key. He's the engine. He stirs, the drink. He's the straw that stirs the drink. But what Cohen is doing, man, is just you cannot replicate that. Like if we lost Cohen, obviously, God forbid, I don't want that to happen to like an injury. It would be a major setback because what he brings is just you can't replace that. And so I got to go Colin Carr, man. He's been amazing this year.
Yeah, I just pulled up your minutes per game, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 guys who play over 13 minutes a game.
It's crazy, bro.
That's wild.
We haven't been that deep since the last time we've been that deep, I would probably say was the Jaren Jackson year, which would have been 2017-18, where we had Jaren, Miles Bridges, Cassius Winston, whole bunch of guys, Nick Ward, Josh Langford, Kenny Goins, Ben Carter, Gavin Schilling. So but it's never been like this. And I just think the key to all this, because last year we tried to experiment with the three guard lineups. The key to it this year is that you have 2 true point guards between Trey Holloman and Jeremy Fears. And again, like the Jeremy Fears effect, if you watch that game at Northwestern, that would have been yesterday, he just has a cool and calm presence on the floor where it's like when he has the ball in his hands, he's destined to make the right play. Like even if he makes a boneheaded play, he's going to make up for it in one way, shape, or form. And I just think, again, getting back to having a real deal Michigan State point guard through and through is important, man. And that's what all of our best teams have ever been. That's where it starts. And he's the head of the snake for us this year for sure.
Man, I'll never forget Cassius Winston ruined the Zion championship. That was supposed to be our championship, and y'all took it away from us. But we all know point guard play is king, man. And that's probably the one thing I'm still with Duke is in crunch time again. If we're in that game in a March Madness, how are we gonna look? Because obviously I think Shire's lost faith in Caleb. He's on the bench, not playing crunch time. I just want to see how they look in because obviously early season we saw it, but that was early season. But I want to see how that looks in a lot more close games, and especially once you get to March, because that's going to be the biggest test. But I won't keep you too long because I know your Rams are are playing right now. So we'll end it with this: the Mick Cronin. Obviously, a lot's going on. He's had an interesting week and a half or so, right? I would say, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if you haven't heard, he had some comments about his team. He called everyone. I mean, the popcorn guy, the GA. I mean, he called out except for himself. Like, he called out everybody but himself, and then he gets he just intentionally ejected stuff because he was mad at the refs and all that. But obviously, his comments sparked a lot of outrage. Just a lot of people said, I told you that Jay Billis got on him real hard. Some people defended him because a lot of people still think these players are soft nowadays, but essentially he just said they're soft. They're soft. They're soft as tissue paper. Called out the assistants. Called out everyone, and it definitely rubbed people the wrong way, and they've struggled since then. they definitely struggled since then, and as we're recording, they lost to a 500 Rutgers team, who's not even it's not a tournament team right now, even though they have maybe the top 2 of the top 3 picks in the draft. But Mick has been an interesting fella. I mean, he has 500 wins. He's 53 years. I think he's 51. He told us so. He made sure we let us know that he had 500 wins. It was a flex that I was like, that wasn't a flex. It wasn't the flex I think he thought it would be. Like, it's not like, all right, but have you done anything in the tournament, bro? Like it. Coach K could do that. Coach K could be like, yo, I got 1,000 wins, bro. I got 5 chips. Even Izzo can flex. I got a national championship, bro. I got 900 wins. Like, I don't know if Mick Cronin could be flexing like that, but he said what he said. So what's your thoughts on it? Because that's obviously, it's been a topic for the last week and people are still talking about it. So I wanted to bring that up with his comments and just the after effects of that and the approach. Because I don't know, Kev, but I could almost understand the players going at them. Hey, they make money now. So all right, maybe you got to get treated like an NBA player. You make money. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I can get. I don't like that he went at his staff.
Agreed.
I don't like that he went at his staff, like, because most people probably can't even tell you who's on their staff, and they're behind the scenes, and you picked them, just like you picked the players. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So what's your thoughts on the whole Mick Cronin thing? Because then he follows it up getting ejected. So that's selfish.
Yep.
That's selfish, and you could even say soft, and I don't know. Mick Cronin has not had a good week plus. So what's your thoughts on that? Because I know I wasn't feeling it, and so were a lot of like I said, Jay Billis not happy with that too. He went a little rant on Sports Center, but
so my thing is no accountability, because as a coach, it all starts and ends with you. Like, at the end of the day, yes, the players have to go out and perform, but your job is to make sure that your players are ready. And you hit an important point too, is that you recruit your roster more than anything nowadays. As a coach, you recruit your roster. You go out and you handpick your roster. And they brought in a lot of transfers, whether it was Tyler Bilodeau from Oregon State, Sky Clark from Louisville, Eric Daly from Oklahoma State, Dylan Andrews you brought back, Sebastian Mack you brought back, Lazar Stefanovic you brought back, right? So you know exactly what your team is, and yet you just want to go in on everybody else except for Mick Cronin. At the end of the day, when you wake up, you have to look in the mirror. You're the coach. You didn't win all the games that you claim you won by yourself. You won it because you had good players that listened to what you said, but at the end of the day, they went out there and executed at a high enough level to win you those games. And so that was my issue. It wasn't enough. It was a whole bunch of them and not enough I or we. And that's what bothers me, because at the end of the day, basketball is a team sport, ladies and gentlemen, right? It's coaches, it's a head coach, assistant coaches, it's the bench, and it's 5 guys on the floor at all time. And so that's my issue. So when you look at it, since they have beat Gonzaga, they beat Gonzaga out here at the crib in Inglewood at the Clipper Stadium. They won that game 65-60. Since then, they went on the road and lost at Nebraska. They got dominated at home at the POTY Pavilion by Michigan. Vlad Golden had 30+. Danny Wolf was killing them. They went to Maryland, as you said, lost by 18. Went to Rutgers tonight and lost by 7. Game was a little bit closer than that, but they lost by 7, right? And so to me, that is a direct reflection of you, Mick Cronin. And again, that's my biggest issue is that it's always been a lack of accountability with him. And I think it's going to get to a boiling point where this could spiral and get even worse for UCLA. And then we're going to have another conversation about him down the line about potentially getting fired and UCLA having to go get an entirely new coach and coaching staff, right? And that's where you don't want to be. And I'm going to peel it back a little bit right here, and then I'm going to finish. People forget, and I have to continue to say this because this is important. People forget that, Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez, when they committed to UCLA, it was not Mick Cronin that was the head coach. It was Steve Alford. And Steve Alford got fired. And luckily, Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez decided to stay committed to UCLA instead of decommitting, requesting, their national letter of intent to be released and going to look for another destination. They stayed down with Mick Cronin, and ultimately he took them to the Final Four. But again, I said to say, Mick Cronin didn't recruit those guys, but those are staples and pillars of Mick Cronin's tenure at UCLA. And I think people tend to forget that. And ever since those guys have left, remember last year they had the roster where it was the European influx, right? You had Jan Fible. I have no idea where he's at right now. You had Jan Vide. He's at LMU out here. You had Berke Bayuktensu, who's at Nebraska coincidentally and beat them. And then you had a whole bunch of other guys. Daimar is still there, but it didn't work out. Last year was a disaster. And now, again, you brought in all these guards. You brought in Kobe Johnson from USC. I didn't even mention. He comes over from a crosstown rival. Again, you brought in Eric Daly, Tyler Bilodeau, and you're struggling. And a lot of people thought they were going to be good. And I'm watching every single game. I watched almost all their games this year. They are a pretty good defensive team, even though they don't have that much height outside of a Daimara in the front court. But offensively, you don't have a guard that really concerns you if you're an opposing team. If you're doing their scouting report, you're looking at Tyler Bilodeau and Eric Daly, and then you're like, okay, if anybody else beats us, they beats us. But more than likely, they're not going to. And so this team just is not capable offensively. And if you're not going to hang your hard hat on the defensive end of the floor, then you're going to struggle every single night. And when your best player is a 6'8" center, with all due respect to Tyler Bilodeau, is going to be trouble because we all know the Big Ten is predicated on having really good big men. And there's a lot of very solid big men in the Big Ten right now. And it's not Zach Edey and Hunter Dickinson and Trace Jackson Davis good, but it's a whole bunch of solid bigs in the Big Ten. So to me, they got to figure it out because, again, this could spiral into the wrong direction. And the last thing Mick Cronin wants to do, where he will have to take blame for, is allowing the UCLA Bruins to miss the NCAA tournament because that's not acceptable out there in Westwood. So this was unfortunate, but we'll see how the rest of the season pans out because right now, again, it's heading in the wrong direction and they got to get it together. And it starts with you, Mick Cronin. It just does. You're the coach. Coaches take all the heat. They take all the blame. It's just like a quarterback for a football team, right? You got to figure it out. And hopefully you do because it's going to be plenty of opportunities in the Big Ten for you.
That's the thing is when you're the head coach at a college program, right? You're the head coach, you're the CEO, president, you're everything, right? So you get paid good money, right? And like I said, I know these kids are making some bread now, and that's cool, but still, it's not any. It's for the especially on you. They're not making anything close to what Mick Cronin is making. You got to take it, and then the big word is accountability, right? Everyone's brought that up, but bro, you didn't. All right, we get you want to get out your players, but that some of that keep that in the locker room. But you got to take responsibility, dog. It's on you. None of it. He didn't say nah. He like you said, he tried to flex his wins. It's all right, cool. You got 500 wins. All right, whatever, bro. It's that's not as big of a flex as you think, but it was no accountability. It's just, they're calling him soft, and it's I know a lot of people they brought up the Rick Pitino thing because remember Pitino, he said the same thing, and it's similar, but Pitino is Pitino though.
And
there's levels to this.
Mick Cronin is from the Rick Pitino tree, so that's where he gets it from.
But he's not Rick Pitino though.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Pitino got rings, and Pitino's
Yeah.
got, I mean, abundance of wins. You know, so like there's levels to this, and for Pitino that obviously was a catalyst because they wound up playing better. You know that, but I don't know. It just it rubbed me the wrong way, and I said throwing your coaches under the bus, like I just think because they don't really have much of a way to like respond. Like they're not gonna go on the internet. Like the players can respond, by their play, whatever. But it seemed like it's backfired because if you think about it, I think they played Gonzaga a few weeks back, and that was the close. They could have lost that game. So they easily could be a 6-game losing streak because they had lost a game before that. I forgot where they played. Carolina. They played Carolina.
Yeah.
So it easily could be a 6-game losing streak. And if, like I said, if it spirals and this, obviously with the comments and then the ejection at the Maryland game, where he pretty much just quit. Dog, you quit. You pretty much said, like, you were fed up with the refs.
They were down 9 with, I think, like just under 6 minutes left. So the game was still, it wasn't out of hand.
There.
But they had a chance still, and he just let it go. That just cost him the game right there.
And that's selfish, because if a player did that, you would kill him. You would kill that player, right? You'd be like, you're selfish, you're soft. It's kind of wild how he did that right after that. But yeah, Mick Cronin, not a good week. And like I said, as we're recording this, they lost to Rutgers, a team that's not a tournament team. They're not a tournament. Yes, we know they have 2 of the best players in the country, but it's still a team that's struggling, and you lost to them. What was the score? Let me look up the score.
I just had it. It was
75-68.
Yep.
So say ASAT 20, yeah. And it looks like the second half is where they fell. Yeah. Because they were up 33-30 at the first half. I gotta watch this game tomorrow. 30, and then the second half they couldn't score. They couldn't get a bucket. No pun intended. They couldn't get a bucket. Oh, that's a foul. All right. But I know your Rams are playing, bro. I know the thing's getting tight. So I know you looking at the TV. So any closing thoughts before we sign off? Anything on your mind? Anything?
Yeah, definitely. Again, shout out to my Spartan Dogs. We're going to keep hooping. Again, it's a big game on Sunday where we play Illinois at the crib. Got to play, hopefully, again.
The Spurs playing?
I hope so. They play, I think they're at Indiana tomorrow, and I think he's a game-time decision. So I'm curious to see how that plays itself out. But I hope he does play because I would love for him to play on Sunday. It wouldn't have the same amount of hype, as it would be.
He's good. He's legit. He's legit.
Very good. And Ivisa's been playing well for him. So looking forward to that game. It's a lot of very good upcoming games this week. Iowa State plays Kansas, I believe, tomorrow. That's going to be a phenomenal matchup in the Big 12. And we're in the thick of things, man. It's conference play. Every single game is hard earned no matter who you're playing against. And, yeah, just stay tuned, man. We're going to be back with you guys soon. Y'all stay safe out there. Again, shout out to all my SoCal folks, man. We're going to be good. We're going to bounce back from this little setback for a major comeback. But, yeah, man, it's another good one.
Sure. Yeah, we got Ole Miss, Bama tomorrow. It's just some good games, and like I said, prayers for everyone out there in California. Stick together, man. I know we live in a time where everyone's divided, but stick together, and y'all get out of this. We're people are a lot more together than people think, and when stuff like tragedies like this, I remember when 9/11 happened and everyone just banded together, so we stick together and you'll get through it. But prayers out to everybody out in the left coast that's going through these difficult times. That Kev, you're out there, so be safe out there, brother. And prayers to you and your family, affected by this tragedy. But got a lot of good college basketball coming up. All week, man. Like I said, it's college basketball's on a roll right now. Some good games coming up. Sparty's good, Duke's good, life's good. Continue. It's good. Except for Miami, the Miami Hurricanes need help.
Yeah,
Miami Hurricanes. I remember I had it written down to talk about, but I was like, we'll save that for another day. Miami's,
Yeah.
they got Carson Beck though on the foot. We got a quarterback though. My boys got the quarterback. So but yeah, the basketball team not so hot right now, but we'll talk about that at a different day. But on that note, be well, be safe, take care. I'm Chris. That's Kev. Get a Bucket Podcast. We out.